angels, it's Hailey Reese, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I am so grateful that you are here, and I do hope that you are having an absolutely incredible morning, afternoon, or night, whatever it is for you when this video finally reaches you. Today's video is one that I am so excited to be making. Truly, I have been so excited that so many of you guys have been enjoying my Glitch in the Matrix series here on my channel just as much as I've enjoyed making it. Recently, I have dove down a massive Glitch in the Matrix overlapping of parallel or alternative universes, and just these crazy, unexplainable experiences that have been happening all across the world. Now, it really is no secret that as of lately, it seems as though the veil between our world and the spirit dimensions is thinner than it's ever been. People all across the world are having experiences that are making them realize most of what we've been taught isn't exactly the way it is. And there may be so much more to our world than we even could ever comprehend. Now, we've been diving into some of the most bizarre, mind-bending glitches in the Matrix. But today, we're diving into 3 glitch in the Matrix experiences that are far more terrifying than many I've been sharing recently. What if I told you there are people existing among us who claim that a life they've lived or a person they've loved seems to have never existed at all? Imagine if all of a sudden you woke up from the world you've come to know for however many years and suddenly discovered that that life never existed, or at least never existed in the way that you thought it had. What if your closest friend, a relative, or somebody that you've fallen in love with suddenly didn't exist in your world? How freaking crazy would you feel? Well, today we're diving into 3 experiences that explore exactly that. These experiences are terrifying and will truly leave you questioning everything. So with all of that being said, sit back, relax, and maybe turn a light on, because we're about to get into the glitch in our world. Here we go. All right, so this first experience really caught my attention because it seemed as though the individual sharing it had a best friend that seemingly never existed. I mean, either way, things certainly were not as they seemed. And so it begins. A few months ago, I had the most terrifying experience. I'm really not sure what happened. I'm wondering if it was some sort of glitch in the Matrix, or maybe I really am losing my mind. Either way, I need to share it, or the second is inevitable. So here's a bit of the backstory, okay? My best friend Alex was dying. I hate to put it that way, that bluntly and that harshly, but that was the reality. He'd been battling aggressive end-stage cancer for about a year, and it was very clear to all of us that he wasn't going to make it. We'd known each other since we were kids, as close as we could possibly have been. And in those final weeks, I had spent nearly every day at the hospital with him. We talked about everything, his regrets, his hopes for the future, even though deep down we both knew there likely wouldn't be one. The people he wanted to say goodbye to. Just a lot of that heavy, emotional stuff. The night before Alex passed away, he seemed oddly calm. He wasn't in pain, I mean, at least not visibly. We were sitting in his room, and the kind of quiet that only comes in when you're with someone who's about to leave this world filled it. I gave him one last hug and told him I loved him. He whispered back, "I'll see you on the other side." The next day, I got the call from his mom. He had passed in his sleep, peacefully. I was devastated, of course. I went to the hospital to say my final goodbyes, and I swear I could still smell his cologne on the pillow when I leaned in. Now here's where things get really, really scary. A couple of weeks after the funeral, I was at a local coffee shop with some of my other friends, just trying to move on as best I could. As I was sitting there, talking to them about random stuff, I heard someone behind me call my name. I turned around, and there, standing in front of me, was Alex, alive. I almost choked on my coffee. I stared at him for a few minutes, my brain trying to catch up. I knew Alex had passed away. I'd been there, I'd seen the body, and I'd made peace to say goodbye. But yet there he was, standing in front of me, like nothing had happened. "Hey man, long time no see," Alex said, like he just stepped out of a meeting or something. I froze. "What the hell are you doing here?" He just laughed and shrugged. "Just grabbing a coffee, you want one?" I was completely lost. My heart was pounding. I couldn't think straight. I just kept looking at him, trying to find something, anything that would explain this. Was I hallucinating? Was I dreaming? But no, he was real. I could smell his same cologne. His hair looked the same. Even his clothes were the same as what he wore when we used to hang out. It was like nothing had changed. I stumbled out some words about how he had died, and this didn't make sense, but he kept looking at me like I was crazy. "I don't know what you're talking about. I'm fine. You must be really tired or something." He acted like he didn't even remember being sick, like none of it had happened. I asked him about the hospital, the chemo, and everything he had gone through in the last few months, but he brushed it off and acted like it was a vague, non-existent memory. I don't know what came over me, but I just left. I didn't know what else to do. I had told him I had to go, and I walked out of the cafe. I kept looking over my shoulder, half expecting him to be following me, but I never looked back. What's weirder, though, wasn't me seeing him suddenly alive. Since that day, it's like he never existed. It's like the entire year I spent with him was a figment of my imagination. I checked in with his family, his mom, and his sister, and they all confirmed that he was gone. They remember the funeral. They remember everything. But when I tried to bring up that moment in the cafe, they all gave me confused looks, like I was the one who'd gone crazy. I tried reaching out to the cafe, but they don't remember anyone like Alex ever coming in. I even showed them a photo of him, and they just shake their heads. No one knows who he is. It was like he was a ghost, and maybe I'd made peace with that. Until I couldn't. I ran into one of our old friends not too long after everything had happened. I chalked it up that maybe the paranormal did exist, and that who I'd seen was just the ghost of him after he'd passed. But I later found out I wasn't the only one who'd seen him. Every now and then, a few people from our past have ran into Alex. But the weirdest part is that my old friend had seen Alex married to a woman he knew was not with Alex. This woman had moved across the world to Australia and was married with her own kids there. When he had reached out to her, asking how he'd seen her with Alex, she claimed she didn't even know who Alex was. Half the people that I've been speaking to claim that they've seen Alex only in passing once or twice, but that they've seen him married to someone we know he's not married to. They also claim that he would disappear almost in the middle of nowhere. But what's even weirder is that the other half remember him being sick and remember him passing away. It's almost like our own real-life Mandela effect. Half the people who knew Alex claim that they've hardly seen him, and that he's off living a completely different life. But the other half know that Alex has passed away and also know that Alex was not with this woman. I don't know if I'm hallucinating things or if something weirder has happened. I mean, how could we all hallucinate having seen a very much alive Alex? Even weirder, why with that random girl we'd went to school with? Again, she has her own family across the world. I can't shake the feeling that the Alex I knew never truly existed. What if I had met another version of Alex in the coffee shop that day? I mean, I know it sounds crazy, but after reading other people's experiences, maybe it's not that far-fetched. Has anyone else experienced something like this, or am I truly losing my mind? Did something change? What do you think happened? It's really interesting that they ended up touching on all of those strange occurrences with others and Alex afterwards, because my initial thought was the same thing. Perhaps he'd ran into the spirit of Alex, perhaps just going through the day-to-day motions as per usual and not even recognizing that he'd passed. But hearing that somebody had seen him with a woman who wasn't even living in that area and had a family of her own while he's supposed to have passed is really, really eerie and does lead me to believe that perhaps there has been some overlapping of another alternative universe where Alex perhaps hadn't gotten sick and had maybe married somebody else. But I want to know what you guys think. This next one is absolutely terrifying and what nightmares are made of. I mean, imagine if you suddenly just realized the life you thought you were living never existed. Let's get into it. This is going to sound batshit crazy, and I can barely process it myself, but I need to say this. What I experienced doesn't feel like a dream, a wild coincidence, or a mental break. It's like my whole life has been rewritten, and I'm the only one who remembers the original version. A few weeks ago, I had one of those what the hell moments that have completely shaken my perception of reality. It started when I bumped into someone I hadn't seen in years, someone who wasn't supposed to be here. It's hard to explain, but I'll try. Let me start by saying that I've always had a fairly ordinary life. No strange coincidences or odd experiences. But about 4 years ago, I met this guy, Jack. We became close friends, and over the course of a year or so, we got even closer. We had a really intense connection. We shared hobbies, same sense of humor. We were like family. He even moved in with me for a while his apartment fell through. We spent countless nights watching movies, playing games, talking about our futures. He was, in every sense, my best friend. One night, we had this deep conversation. We were both in our mid-20s at the time, and the topic of life choices came up. Jack was adamant that he didn't want to settle down in the traditional sense, but we always joked about how we'd never really be alone because we'd always have each other. I remember laughing about it, saying, yeah, if we're both still single 10 years from now, let's just live together, start a podcast, and get cats. He laughed and agreed. And then, one day, Jack disappeared. Not physically, but in every other sense. One day, he just stopped coming around. He didn't respond to my calls, texts, or emails. After a few weeks, I gave up trying to reach out. I figured maybe he'd moved away or something and just didn't tell me. But there was no closure. It was like Jack was just erased from my life. I didn't let it bother me too much at first, but as time went on, I started feeling like something was wrong. I began asking around. My other friends didn't remember him. They'd never met Jack. At first, I thought I was going crazy, so I started retracing my steps, checking old social media, looking through photos. There was no sign of him. It was like he had never existed. Even our shared experiences together seemed to fade, like they were slipping through my fingers. But here's the mind bending part. Last week, I was walking to my car when I saw him, Jack, standing on the sidewalk, looking the same as always. Same messy hair, same goofy smile, same style. I almost didn't believe my eyes. I froze, and then I called his name. He turned around looking confused, but also like he knew me. "Hey, you look familiar," he said, clearly trying to place me. I was speechless. It was the same guy. But when I asked him about everything, our friendship, how we lived together, all those nights we'd spend just hanging out, he looked at me like I was out of my mind. He said, "I don't know what you're talking about. We've never met before." I don't know how to explain it, but it felt like the world shifted. He was the same person physically, but in every other sense, it was like none of it had ever happened. It was like the last 4 years of my life had been erased from reality, and I was the only one who remembered them. I started asking around again. I reached out to old friends, mutual acquaintances, even the people I knew we had worked with. No one had any memory of Jack. It was like the entire version of reality where Jack and I were close friends had been rewritten. Some of my friends even seemed confused when I brought him up, saying they didn't know anyone by that name. I'm starting to question my entire life. Did I hallucinate those years with Jack? Was I imagining our friendship? But that doesn't explain how I remember everything so clearly. I remember laughing at our stupid inside jokes. I remember the way his laugh sounded. I remember the late night drives we'd take, blasting music with the windows down. I remember everything except that no one else does. I've tried to talk to people about it, but everyone looks at me like I'm crazy. The more I dig into this, the less anything makes sense. And now, whenever I try to ask Jack about it, he just gives me a confused look and walks away. I don't know what happened to my life, but it feels like I'm living in a version of reality where my own memories have been rewritten. I'm starting to feel like a glitch, like I'm the only one who remembers the old timeline, and now I'm stuck in this new version where everything is off. I'm honestly terrified. Imagine if a whole chunk of your life was erased, as if it was never there. I'm not even sure if I'm still in the original version of my life or if I'm stuck in an alternate reality where I'm the only one who remembers. But I'm starting to think something really, really messed up is happening to me. Something impossible. Imagine even those close to you not remembering someone that you were so close to, that you lived with. That is so crazy, and I am so curious to know what you think of it. Which leads me into the final experience that's similar to the last, but different in its own ways. Honestly, I think it's absolutely terrifying that so many people, especially as of recently, are having these experiences where people or memories are altered or non-existent. But let's get into this experience. I can't shake the feeling that my reality has shifted. I don't know what I just experienced, but basically, my entire relationship just vanished into thin air. So, here's what happened. I was with this girl, Lena, for about 2 years. We met at work, and it wasn't love at first sight or anything. But over time, we grew close. It wasn't perfect. I mean, like any relationship, we had ups and downs. But overall, I thought we were really happy. We'd traveled together, we'd met each other's families, and we were in the talks of our future. She was a super huge part of my life, and I thought I was a big part of hers. A couple months ago, Lena and I had a pretty serious conversation. She told me she was feeling distant, like something was missing, and we ended up deciding to take a break to figure things out. It wasn't dramatic or anything crazy, just one of those we need space type things. I agreed, but I kept hoping we'd come back to each other with a bit of time. Here's where things get really messed up. About a couple weeks ago, I was at a friend's party and I started talking to this girl. She looked exactly like Lena. I mean, could have been her twin. Same hair, same smile, same mannerisms. So I made a joke saying, "You remind me of my ex." And she looked at me like I was insane. Then she had no idea who I was talking about. I asked her if she knew Elena. Same reaction, no clue. She kept laughing awkwardly, and eventually I just dropped it, assuming she didn't want to talk about her. I mean, she'd known her, so that would be the only reason. But the whole time, I really did feel like something was off. A few days later, I ran into one of my best friends, and we were talking about relationships. I mentioned Lena just in passing. He froze and stared at me and said something absurd. He asked me, "Who's Lena?" And I was taken aback. I told him she was my ex-girlfriend, and he looked at me like I was a stranger. At first, I thought it was a weird joke, but then I started really asking around. I talked to people who definitely knew me when I was with Lena. Friends, coworkers, even family members who had met her. But no one knew who she was. It was like she had never existed. I even showed a few people pictures of us together, and they all acted like they'd never seen her before in their lives, which is crazy that they still had the pictures, but let's continue. I started getting paranoid, so I asked my parents about her, and even they gave me blank looks. "Who's Lena?" my mom asked. I showed them our anniversary photos, and they told me that they'd never seen her and never met her. I felt like I was in a nightmare. My mom had texted me about Lena a few months before, so I scrolled through all of our messages. They had disappeared. All I had left was the photos. I remember everything about her, though. I have the photos in my hands. I know our first date, the trips we've taken, the nights we've stayed up late talking. I know everything about Lena, but everyone's telling me she never existed. I'm the only one who seems to remember her at all. I've even tried Googling her name, and there's really nothing. No social media profiles, no mention of her anywhere. I thought at first I was blocked, but really, she's like a ghost. It's like she was never even part of this world, and I'm losing my grip on what I believed to be real. I've even gone back to places we used to go together, hoping to find something that proves she was real, but it's like everything besides the physical printed photos have been wiped clean. It's as if Lena was never supposed to be part of my life. I don't know what to do anymore. Am I the only one who's been through something like this? What the hell is going on? Am I really just going crazy? And that's the end of the experience. What's truly terrifying about these is the fact that the responses to stories of this nature are more often than not many of people claiming that either big or small things have happened in their worlds that have led them to believe they've experienced a different reality than those around them. Sometimes it's as little as the colors of things changing or the arrangement of furniture being different than you remember. But sometimes it really is as big as entire relationships having never existed. So what is it you think is going on here? And why are these experiences becoming far and far more frequent? Well, lucky for you guys have been absolutely enjoying this series here on my channel, and I am ready to dive deeper. So over the next couple of weeks here on my channel, we're going to explore more of these, dive deeper into these glitches in the matrix, and try to get some sort of explanation as to what's going on. Which of these stories freaked you out the most, and what are your theories? Have you experienced a glitch in the matrix of this nature? And what would you do if you did? Make sure to comment all of that down below, as one of my favorite things to do is to read through all of your guys' thoughts, opinions, and theories. But with all of that being said, that is it for today's video. If you guys are new to my channel, or you are just not yet subscribed but you enjoy my content, I would really appreciate it if you would go ahead and click that subscribe button, and please give this video a big thumbs up if you did enjoy it. Remember, my loves, do all things with kindness, and until tomorrow, I love you. Bye, guys.